Nothing says fall quite like the cooking that begins around the house. Think apple pie, pumpkin pie, pecan pie, etc. And this brown sugar sweet potato pie with a homemade rum whipped cream is no exception. It's a buttery, flaky crust filled with the silkiest brown sugar sweet potato pie filling and is baked until it has the perfect creamy texture. Once it's cooled completely, and while the smell of cinnamon still lingers in the kitchen, slice up this pie and serve it with my amazing homemade rum whipped cream. It truly sends this classic Southern dessert over the edge and will definitely impress all of your family members, even the picky ones. And just think, Thanksgiving and Christmas are on their way. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm making my homemade crust, and I just took my flour, put it in a mixing bowl. Then I took a stick of butter and I grated it so that it was easier to incorporate. You want to mix it together until it is all incorporated and it feels like sand. That's the best way that I can explain it. Then you're going to add the other ingredients, which includes some salt, some white vinegar, an egg, and 4 to 5 tablespoons of ice cold water. Now again, please keep in mind in the video, I'm not giving you specific measurements because all of that can be found on my blog. If you look in the description of the video, there's a link. Simply click on it. It'll take you over to jessiesfoodfaithandfamily.com and you can see everything in writing, including pictures. So I'm just going to mix all of the ingredients together with my hands, my fingers, and if you notice that it's a little bit dry, you can always add, just like I did, a little bit more of the ice cold water. But I would only add it a tablespoon at a time because you can always add water, but you can't take it out if you put too much. After the dough has formed a ball and completely come together, I'm going to wrap it in some plastic wrap. And before I put it in the fridge, I'm going to flatten it because that will make it easier for me to roll out when I do take it out. And I'm going to let it chill for about 20 minutes. The resting time for the dough works perfectly because now I'm going to get started on my sweet potatoes. So I just took a baking sheet and I used some parchment paper so that the cleanup is minimal. And I'm going to do 3 medium-sized sweet potatoes and I'm going to poke them all over with a fork. This allows some of that steam to escape. And then I'm going to put them in a 425 degree oven. They are going to bake for about 50 minutes. I want to make sure that they're completely cooked through. They're very soft, and I actually like a little bit of color on them because I think it adds even more flavor. So you can see here they've already baked and I've taken them out, and I'm just going to pull the skin off. It comes off so easily once the potatoes have been baked. It's not a struggle at all. So it's so much easier to do it after they've been cooked than before. And I'm just going to show you on this sweet potato. Do you see that little bit of brown? That is just extra flavor. Otherwise, we could have boiled the potatoes, but we don't get that extra flavor. Now I'm just mashing my sweet potatoes with a potato masher. Now, if you want this process to go a little bit quicker and you want a fluffier sweet potato pie, then you can definitely use an electric hand mixer for that. So after I get the potatoes mashed up, I'm going to take my attention back to the pie crust or the pie dough. I took it out of the fridge. I sprinkled some flour on my table. I sprinkled some flour. This is all-purpose flour, by the way. I sprinkled it on the table, on the dough, and on the rolling pin. And I'm just going to apply some pressure, and I'm going to roll this dough out to the size of my pie plate, which is 10 inches. And I just keep rotating that dough so that I can make sure that I get a pretty good circle. Now, it's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. That's what makes it homemade. Now, after I have completely rolled it out, I like to roll it on the rolling pin and place it into my glass pie dish. And I'm just going to press it down in the center and make sure everything fits. Now, my dough looks a little raggedy, but seriously, it's okay. No big deal. And I'm going to tuck the edges under because I want it to be a little bit thicker. This is going to help me because I'm decorating the edges of my crust with a ribbon decoration, and I need it to be a thick crust in order to make those indentions with my hand. And I'm going to show you that process right here. I am simply placing my index finger on the edge of the dough and I'm pushing on it with other 2 fingers with my other hand. That just makes that beautiful indentation. It's kind of like a scalloped, some people call it a ribbon decoration. This method is my favorite. I think it looks super fancy. It looks difficult, but it's really not that hard at all. And I think it makes the pie extra beautiful. Now that the crust is complete, I'm going to do an egg wash. I'm just going to crack an egg into a little glass bowl, mix it really well with a fork, and then take a pastry brush and I'm going to brush all of the edges of my pie crust. Now, because I don't like to be wasteful, I took the rest of the egg and I brushed the sides and the bottom of the pie crust as well, but you do not have to do this. It may change the texture of your pie, but I didn't mind. I thought it was fine. I just hated to waste the extra egg, so I used the entire thing. Now I just set the pie crust to the side and I'm ready to make my fillings. So to my sweet potatoes, I added some butter. I'm going to add some brown sugar, also salt, cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, heavy cream, some all-purpose flour, eggs, and vanilla. And you just simply put all of those ingredients into the bowl, no specific order. And then I'm going to get a whisk and I'm going to whisk it and incorporate it completely. Now, again, if you want this to be silkier, super smooth, almost like a souffle, and you want absolutely no texture, no lumps, and you want to make it fluffy, then by all means use an electric hand mixer or your KitchenAid. Totally fine. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. There is ginger in there too. You cannot leave that ingredient out. After it's completely mixed very well, I'm going to pour it into my unbaked pie shell, and I've preheated my oven to 350 degrees, and I'm going to put the pie in there and let it bake for about 55 minutes. Now, I set a timer for everything when I'm baking, so definitely do that. But if you want a visual representation of when you should pull it out, it's when there's just a slight jiggle when you shake the pie dish. Or you could put a toothpick in the center and when it comes out almost entirely clean. Now, I did notice while my pie was baking that the edges were getting a little too brown. They were beautiful, but I didn't want them to burn, so I added some tin foil to the edges, about 1/4 or 3/4 of the way of cooking. Now, when you take it out of the oven, you're going to want to set it somewhere and let it cool, preferably about 2 hours. This pie to me is served best at room temperature or even cold. I like this pie cold, like you could totally eat it for breakfast the next morning. And now we're going to make our rum whipped cream. I'm just going to add my heavy whipping cream, my rum extract, and some powdered sugar to my mixer. I'm going to put it on high and I'm just going to let it go until it becomes fluffy, creamy, and delicious. I like to keep the whipped cream in the fridge after it's made until we are ready to serve, and then put a dollop of it on each slice of the pie. I don't want to put it on the entire pie because I'm not sure how soon it's going to be eaten, and the whipped cream is not going to last as long in the fridge. You guys, this is the perfect Thanksgiving and Christmas dessert. You have to make it. You have to.